Welcome to the Worship Online podcast. Here we discuss not only the ins and outs of worship leadership, but also what it looks like to love and live like Jesus off stage. I'm your host, Josh Kluge. Thanks so much for joining us as we dive into today's episode. This week's show is so great, and I truly can't wait to jump in. But first, this week's worship pastor shout out goes to Devin Bumstead from Newberry Park First Christian Church in Newberry Park, California. And many people from his worship team reached out and shared how incredible Devin is at uniting people and together bringing them into the place of encountering the Lord. He is immensely sensitive to the leading of the Spirit and carries the mark of the pastor in the way he approaches everyone on his team. Such a man of intentionality and truly has a passion for the house of God. Devin, we honor you today. You're an absolutely incredible leader. Thank you for leading that community so well. Now, what we talk about today is seemingly more prevalent now than in recent decades. How do we approach those that we disagree with? How do we approach the doubts that we carry in our hearts? And there was so much gold shared in this conversation, but with some technical difficulties, we were only able to capture a piece of our conversation. But even still, it's filled with gold after gold, and I can't wait for you to hear it. Today's conversation is with a dude who needs no introduction, started a band called Switchfoot that truly became a beacon of inspiration, love, and hope on a massive global scale. And on top of releasing music with Switchfoot, he's been a solo artist for quite some time. I admire this guy a whole lot, who he is and what he carries, and the infamous stories that I hear about the man that he is from friends all around. We have a true legend with us today, Mr. John Foreman. Bro, pumped to have you on the show, man.
Yeah, honored to be here. I don't know how to respond to any of those accolades, but I'm thankful to be here.
Yeah, man. Well, dude, I have a few questions that kind of, as someone who's been aware of who you are as an artist and a creator for years and years and years, legends, things that I've wondered about throughout the years. I'd love just kind of rapid fire of the folklore of John Foreman throughout the years. We won't get spicy, so you don't have to worry about that.
I like spice.
Well, first thing, something that I remember when I was a teenager, dude, being really blown away by was the Bro-Am that you guys started.
Yes.
For those who don't know, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, the Bro-Am is surfing and a show for your home city, San Diego, that was really created to be as like a give back to the community. I would imagine that there's got to be some like wild, funny Bro-Am chaos stories that has happened throughout the year.
Yeah, I mean, the Bro-Am was conceived. We conceived of the idea on a flight back to the States from Australia, and in time where we were kind of coming home and just really thankful to be alive, thankful to be coming home, thankful for where we lived. And we thought, how can we give back to the next generation? What would that look like? And we thought to ourselves, well, surfing and rock and roll kind of kept us out of trouble when we were kids. Let's have a party with surfing and music on the beach and give money and an incredible day to the homeless kids in our hometown. And it was like some friends from high school, very grassroots, just bare bones. And now it's, aside from the last 2 years where we couldn't host the event with COVID concerns, it's been, 15, 18,000 people on the beach, which our little beach community is not set up for that. So it's this crazy thing that every year I'm blown away that we get to do it. I'm way more proud of that than like Grammys or any form of awards or accolades. It's definitely one of our favorite things we've ever been a part of.
Yeah. And it's such a cool concept because it really embodies, from what I know about who you guys are individually in the band, as people who love all of those different things that show up at the Bro-Am.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is that classic wisdom. If you are passionate about something, you're going to be invested in it naturally. When you're when you actually care deeply about what's happening, music, surfing, our hometown community, all three of these areas are places where I love investing my time into, and I feel so rewarded by those pursuits. And so it felt like a very natural way to invest in the kids of the next generation.
Yeah. So talk about your surfing abilities. Who's the star surfer in your crew?
Tim and Chad and I, we started as a three-piece, and we still love surfing. I think Tim probably surfs the most out of all of us, and I would probably put my money on him. Don't tell him, though. He's my little brother, so, I don't want him to get a big head or anything.
Right. Dude, so then another one that I was talking with a bud about in the Fading West, you speak about an awkward festival that y'all played in Europe, a metal festival. Go through that scenario of y'all showing up as this Christian band playing at the metal festival, I think in Europe somewhere, if that rings a bell.
Yeah, I mean, we have opened for Napalm Death. We have
what a great name.
Shared this stage with bands that use fake blood and real blood, like on stage. It's this type of thing where I think in the movie there's this quote, a lot of bands play shows that feel uncomfortable, and I think the difference for us is we play those shows intentionally. We play those uncomfortable shows on purpose. I think it's really interesting because we have played over the years. We've opened for Bon Jovi in Europe in front of 70,000 people. We've played a bunch of Christian festivals. We played like crappy little things for 2 or 3 people. We've done it all. And early on, you realize that when you're trying to get your music out there, your role is to bring light, to bring hope, to be salt, to be flavor, to be opening the doors and the windows of the souls of whoever might be listening to a bigger narrative than just yourself,
Yeah.
And I feel like the irony is that occupation is needed everywhere. Like early on when we were playing, we'd play anywhere. We'd play like frat parties, bar mitzvahs, youth groups. Like we were playing coffee shops everywhere, and it was this really beautiful commonality where you're like, so the youth group that we're playing is no different than the bar we played last night. Like it's hurting people looking for hope, looking for meaning.
Yeah.
And I think that early on it became this commonality where I am reticent to ever put a we they in the narrative of whatever I'm saying. Like it's all we. There is no they.
Yeah.
Like you are my brother, you are my sister. Let's talk this through together,
Yes. Oh man. And I've watched that even in the decisions that I've seen y'all make throughout the years of how you even market yourselves, what labels you're working with, what you do play, well, the shows that you play. It's really obvious that has been not just a personal mantra, but it's something that's been a guiding lamp and proven in the way that you all interact with and execute who you are as a band, which has been really cool to see.
Yeah, it's been really helpful because I think we've been protested like pretty much everybody by Westboro Baptist. And I had this realization the day before they protested us that all these things that that feel like they're coming against you in life are often the very chisel that God is using to reform you, and
oh, that's good.
So they showed up and I was like, I had this completely different attitude. I was like, they're saying really derogatory, horrible things about us and about the people that are attending. And I feel really horrible for the people standing in line that are just being berated by this guy with a loudspeaker. But I was like, okay, I'm going to give these guys water. So I went across the street and I gave them water and I just said, I want to thank you for being here. And I want to take you guys out for coffee. And then every time since then, when they protest, I'm like excited. I'm thrilled because I'm like, oh, this is going to reveal something. This is going to be something beautiful that I can gain from this.
Yeah. So then what are some things that you do in those moments where, because I feel like a lot of it, at least for me, whenever I see those divisious conversations taking, or not even divisious, but just very obvious, you are on one side, I'm on another side, and kind of the energy starts to get high and the inability to continue in conversation begins. It's an emotional thing that, at least in my experience, sometimes my emotions will get the best of me and my vocab list falls to like 2 words and I can't figure out how to talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm the college dropout who loved college.
Yeah.
Like I still love learning, and
yes.
And so I'm always reading books on psychology and economics and find it fascinating because I feel like it unpacks things that I can't understand otherwise. And I was reading this book that really helped me understand some part of that sentence that you just said. When someone comes in contact with a piece of information that challenges their ideals, their understanding of the world, many times their brain will actually no longer respond with the rational portion of their brain. That you shift into fight or flight.
Okay, yeah, whoa,
So
dude.
when you are having a rational discourse with someone and suddenly it turns irrational and you say, what happened? It helps me to realize, oh, I'm no longer talking to the rational portion of this human being. I'm talking to the fight or flight. They've been challenged in such a way that they're actually fighting, like could be literally or figuratively, or flight. And so I think to answer the question, I think the only way through is love. The only thing that works on me when I am challenged to such an extent that I am willing to fight you about something, it is your love that will win me over. Yeah. You know, like every time, if it'll be like you'll have this rub with this person and you're like, oh, this guy's the worst. But dude, I can't argue with it, dude. He comes over and washes my car every Saturday. I hate that guy. What is he doing? You know? But then eventually you're like, I think I have to actually take him seriously because his love has won me over. You know, I think that's what the cross is. That's what they will know we are Christians by our love, not by our dogmatic theology. You know, it's like, you might be right.
Yes.
But you're never going to win the argument without love.
Man. Oh, man. And that's so, yes, of course. You know what I mean? Like,
it's really hard. It's not what you want to hear.
Well, when you experience it too, it's just, it is that disorienting, like sour candy in your mouth, like, dang it, like it's pulling out all the facial expressions.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful.
Yes. And I do think like discourse, that's the only way we're changed, you know, is that middle ground where
right.
Conversation leads to conversion every time. That's the only, you know, like it might be planting seeds that you'll only see down the line, but we need to run up against people we disagree with. That's the only way, you know, for us and for them.
100%, because that's the only way that we can become transformed. Transformation is the product of first revelation and becoming aware. And again, kind of like what you were saying earlier, there's absolutely no way any of us have it 100% correct. And we have it way more incorrect than we even are conscious of. And if our goal is to be transformed into the image of Jesus, to become a full representation of love and who he is, to see the divine transpose the entirety of who we are, however you want to say it, the only way that's going to happen is by becoming aware. The only way you become aware is by coming up against the things that are different than where you're at, which is an uncomfortable thing. And I think it can be scary for people. It's another motivation, is the fear of being wrong and that discomfort that comes up where it's like, oh shoot, well, I don't want to change that because now everything that was just kind of laying nicely in its bed is now kind of all over the place and the room's messy. But if the motivation is to become like Jesus, is to become love, is to see that happen, then the discomfort should be a welcomed thing.
Yeah, and I do think to say, well, what kind of a God do you want to believe in? Do you believe in a God who can only handle your little questions? Or do you believe in a God that can actually handle your biggest questions, your biggest fears, your biggest doubts?
Yes.
My most transformative experience is when I'm at rock bottom and screaming at God, yelling at him for what feels like injustice, or for what feels like, how could this fit in his plan?
Yeah.
And I think those moments for me are moments where I'm tempted to just keep the kid gloves on and just pretend, play nice and play church and play house.
Yeah.
Because what if God can't handle it when I throw a punch? What if God can't handle my big questions?
Wow.
Suddenly God isn't God. Like, that is not a God that I
Right.
can believe in. And so I think the reason why we don't bring these, existential crisis moments to God is not because we believe in him, but because it shows our disbelief. It shows our unbelief, our lack of faith. I know, at least for me, those moments where I'm like really honest, brutally honest with God. And you see it all throughout the scriptures,
Of course. Yeah.
And I think the beautiful thing is, like, when I read scripture, I'm reminded of what a bunch of morons we are. Like,
Yeah.
even like the high watermarks, like the Davids and the apostles, these are like really people I can relate to at my lowest moments, where you're like, yep, I'm dumb enough to do that. And even like, St. Peter, getting corrected by Paul, like called out by this younger dude who's saying, you're blowing it. You're the rock of this is the guy. This is after he's already denied him and made up and all this. Like, he's still blowing it. And I think, for any of us that think we're above that, I think let's continue to be transformed. He who is not busy being born is busy dying, right? Like, let's go. If the blood of Christ means nothing to me now, then I'm in trouble. If it was only something from my past, then gosh, who am I now? I want that power every day.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned that feeling the freedom to express to the Lord that we have our doubts. That can be a tough thing. And that's even something, to bring it into these songs that you're putting out on this really cool live record that I keep coming back to is the Jesus, I Have My Doubts. And feeling the freedom to be able to do that. And I'd love to just like hear what you have to say on why it's important to bring our brutal honesty to the Lord about where we're at, because I know there are even some expressions that banish that sort of liberty. And I'm with you on when you say, I couldn't believe in a God that isn't okay with that and isn't strong enough with that, like, of course he can do that. If he's all powerful, of course he can handle that. And there's been this kind of fear amongst the some of the Christian community to be able to do that. And I love that that's kind of where the brutal honesty is at in this song that you've obviously been in so much of your writing throughout the years. But when it comes to this song, Jesus, I Have My Doubts, feeling the freedom to express that to the Lord and in that, why is that something so valuable?
I think it's a part of the Judeo-Christian tradition is honesty. If we can't be honest to God, oh my gosh, who in the world are we going to be honest to, and expressions that if we truly believe that he knows us, you're expressing what he already knows.
Yeah.
This is not news. He's not shocked or dismayed or bewildered when we come to him with expressions of honesty. And those are my favorite parts of scripture in the Psalms. I feel like those are moments where I find both humanity and deity meeting each other in a way that feels just, it's a beautiful expression of need and fulfillment. I think that there's a matriarchal desire for structure and for conformity. And it's uncomfortable when somebody says to you, I'm having trouble with this. You want to, the knee-jerk reaction, at least for me as a man, in my marriage, in life in general, I'm a fixer. I'm like, oh, dude, yeah, here, I got a Band-Aid. Here, let me fix that.
Here's how you put it on.
And yeah, here we go. Okay. And like, brand new. We're good. We can move on. Now we don't have to deal with the pain. We fixed it. We're over it. We can have lunch or enjoy whatever it is.
Yeah.
My wife tells me that's often not helpful. That she needs someone who can dive into the pain and say, hey, man, that must be really hard. And just sit there with her.
Yeah.
I mean, Job's friend sat with him for 3 days without saying anything.
Yeah. That's
pretty good. And they still end up being morons in the end, but they did way better than I would have done, right? I would have probably said something in the first 30 minutes, But I think like that fix-it mentality can do a lot of damage to people that are grieving, that are pain and in pain and in the moment. I feel like to weep with those that weep is a command.
Yeah.
And I feel like the inability of the church to know what to do with doubts and pain and depression and anxiety, and to yes, we want to move past that. Absolutely. Hallelujah. Let's go. But in this moment right now, your job is not to put a Band-Aid on it. You need to sit there with the wound. And ultimately, Father Abraham, Islam, Jewish folk, and Christians all look back on this moment where you have this maybe senile man going up to the top of a mountain to kill his son.
Yeah.
I mean, that is way outside of the structure of what a good Christian, Jewish, Muslim dude is supposed to be doing. So ultimately, that questions our understanding of morality. It says God is above morality, or he's not. Is he beholden to the rules that we've put on him, or is he above them? I think when, as a dad, I want to put rules around my kids. I want to say, hey, these are the rules, and rules are meant to keep us safe. But at some point, when the church is only rules, we have to remember that our roots are in faith, not in some form of authority. It's in faith in a God who is outside of our boundaries. And to sit with someone in a situation that you can't explain is to say, I believe that God can even use this moment. And I'm not even going to, you don't have to say it. It's not a spoken thing of here's how God's going to fix it. But to just sit with someone in pain, I think Jesus, I have my doubts, is to say, hey, I feel comfortable with my God and my community enough to say, hey, this is what I'm feeling. And my hope would be that the church would be that place that we would go and be like, let's question, let's doubt, let's fear, let's hope, let's dream, but let's also sit with the pain.
Right. Not for the sake of doing it, but for the sake of what's on the other side. And I think that's what gets missed.
And I mean, you have to feel really safe with someone to actually tell them the answer to how are you doing?
Wow.
And I don't know that the church is that place for me all the time.
Wow. Yeah, man. Who would have thought that when an institution is built upon certainty and having all of the answers and falling in alignment with what the answers say, then whenever you don't fall within those boundaries, it can feel very unsafe to come to that thing with your questions.
Yeah, and I think, ultimately, the church is this hospital where there's a bunch of broken people looking to God for his hope, his joy, his love, And I have, in moments, the church has been that place that I've felt completely welcomed with my brokenness. And that is, I think, the high calling of the church. But it isn't always that.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that is interesting is in a post-Enlightenment rational era, we feel somehow the burden of proof of knowing all the answers is put upon us. And I think it's okay to say, no, we serve a God of mysteries. And saying, I don't know is such a beautiful expression.
Yes. To
say, my experience doesn't really have anything to bear on what you're talking about. So I'm not sure. Tell me more. I don't know is a beautiful response. And I think it's a Christian response, you know. Yes. I'm bounded by my own understanding of the world and I'm still learning,
Yeah. It's easy to think, well, if I'm an ambassador, if I'm a representative of my God, then I have to have all my answers, but I am not my God. So I don't know doesn't mean he doesn't know.
And most of the time it's much more honest than saying, quick, I got to come up with an answer.
Yeah, man.
72% of statistics are made up right there on the spot. So,
oh man. Well, dude, Roll Tape, this live from Melody League Studios. We're talking about Jesus, I Have My Doubts, but the whole thing is a real beautiful compilation of songs that have, I know, meant so much to me over the years. The Cure for Pain, Southbound Train, but also just beautiful songs that are from so many different eras. Why did you choose to put this specific collection of songs together the way that you did in the format that you created it in?
Yeah, I felt like during the pandemic lockdown, the appreciation of live music and the communal expression of song reached a new height for me. And maybe for all of us, And so Roll Tape was a celebration of that live expression. It feels like Roll Tape is a bookend at the end of that season, hopefully the end of that season, where we can say, okay, this is what I love about playing with these other men and women that I've been fortunate enough to be able to make music with. And I guess just celebrate doing something beautiful in a dark time.
Yeah. Well, dude, can tell that it was an experience that you really were at the height of just excitement to be in, from the little excerpts after the end of recording certain songs. Oh man, I love playing with you guys. Just the things that were left in there were just so beautiful and so cool. This record, man, getting to hear it just carries so much of the essence of who you are, and you can hear it in the way the songs are formatted and the lyrics that are there. Just a man who pursues love and hope and is wanting to create a space for people to encounter that. And so, dude, want to thank you for taking time to just share your heart and about who you are and what's been going on in your life and the things that you've mulled over, that you're currently mulling over, all in this pursuit to become more who Jesus has called us to be. And I know that these words that you've shared mean a lot to everyone who's listening right now. So, dude, thank you for taking time to speak.
Yeah, I'm always surprised and honored when somebody wants to hear my views on anything. But I love chatting about God and about grace and all of this. And thank you for your time.
Absolutely. I hope this conversation spoke to you, because creating opportunities to grow is what we are all about. If there's anything you want to hear us talk about on the show, or if you have any questions about worship leading, theology, gear, whatever it may be, send us a message at podcast@worshiponline.com. We want to do everything we can to help see you grow. Another way we do that is through our online platform of training and tutorials. Learning new worship songs can be stressful, and our videos make it easy. Worship Online provides in-depth tutorials for guitar, drums, vocal harmonies, keys, acoustic, and bass that make learning songs easier than ever before. We hear all the time how using Worship Online empowers worship leaders and musicians to grow in confidence on and off stage and dramatically improve the quality of their worship. If you're not already a member, visit worshiponline.com to claim your free 2-week trial. Start saving hours of your time each week and ensure you never show up unprepared again. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time here on the Worship Online podcast.